welcome everyone to the coaches call this week. Happy Halloween to everyone. And I hope we have a few more people join us, but everybody is welcome. We can start off if there's any questions.
Hey, Jay, do you have this recording?
I do. Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Yes, I have a couple of questions if no one else has any.
Hi, Meg.
Hi.
How are you?
Well, we're really struggling this year. We have had a huge mess up in our paperwork and our documentation. Our old head coach, who hasn't been the head coach of this team for years, but is our Rockwell contact, and it stayed on, stopped doing first completely, totally unknown to me. And I haven't gotten any emails, anything. I've corresponded with several of you trying to get our team signed up for things. I think we've got everything straightened out. Everything looks fine on all the websites to me now. I'm still not getting any emails, and I have no idea if we're signed up for a tournament or not, or if so, when.
Okay, Meg, I can check on that for you. What's your team number?
19402.
Okay, I'll check on that right now while we're.
Why don't you throw that in the chat?
Thanks. Yeah, and I don't know what the problem is with not, like, I can get signed on now to BadgerBots, but like I have to link to an old email to get on it because like I can't see a login from just going to the site.
Okay.
And my other question is more of a straight up referee question.
Oh,
And I realize this is probably an asked and answered thing. I have listened to all the recordings of all the rest of the coach calls. The hybrid car, sometimes when our kid's robot flips the lever, the car rolls into into the right hand, the east home. And sometimes the battery doesn't stick in the car and rolls right into home with it. I cannot see anything in the rules that says if that happens, the kids can't pick up the car and the battery and stick the battery into the car by hand in home. That looks legal to me in all the rules. Does that sound legal?
correct. Yeah, if they're allowed to handle whatever they want in home, so that's not a problem. And you're meeting both the requirements of the car no longer touching the ramp and the hybrid unit being in the car. It doesn't specifically state when the hybrid unit needs to get into the car. It doesn't say they can't do it by hand in home. Obviously, they can't do it on the field by hand, but I would not, obviously that could just be a your table thing. Are you guys pretty level in your table?
I think so.
Okay.
They're just flipping it kind of hard because the battery is more likely to go into the car if they flip it hard.
Okay. I haven't seen enough of that mission being run to see if that's kind of a common occurrence or not, but I mean, do take into account as well that the tables at tournament may not be exactly the same pitch as what you guys have.
Absolutely. They're not counting on that. And I have warned them over and over that if the car is only halfway in home, do not touch it.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. What you described, there's nothing in the rules that said that's, I mean, that's just good luck. So.
I think somebody in the on the Slack channel had also asked about, I think, stacking energy units on their innovation project and leaving it on the hydrogen power plant. And no one has answered that, but that also looks legal as there's no on the mat requirement in for that particular mission.
You talking about the one from Sarah?
Mm, Yes,
Yeah,
I think so.
I answered that.
Oh, okay. When I looked earlier, it wasn't
Oh
answered.
yeah, I answered it 5 days ago.
Oh,
I answered it
okay.
on the
The
thread.
question is there on mine and the answer isn't.
Oh, so
That's
where it
weird.
says for mission 13.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and go through it though. For mission 13, will points be awarded for an energy unit that is on top of the innovation model, which is in the hydrogen plant target area. She says, we don't see anything stating the energy unit needs to be touching the mat. And she is correct. So there's nothing that would disallow the points for the innovation project or the energy unit in her described situation.
Meg, this is Jennifer. I was wondering when you were talking about the issues you're having with your car. I don't know, do you have another team that's anywhere near you that's got a built table that you could run your mission at another table just to see if it's your table that's causing the car to run where it's going?
Oh, good question. I'm not sure. Most of the time, the battery lands in the car and it's no problem. So it was just the kids were like, if this happens, can we? And, we read the rules and yeah, looks like yes.
Okay.
So that's not our plan.
Come on. Live a little. No, it's fine. And yes, you were very, very wise to advise them not to touch it if it's on the line.
I couldn't answer for them if it had become cargo, but it didn't matter because the rules are equally clear about mission models.
Yeah, it's a mission model, yeah. Hey, Shara, did you have any questions for us today, or you just observing?
I just kind of hanging out, but we're usually at practice, so
Okay.
canceled because of Halloween. So
Ah.
anyway, I do have a question about the wind turbine. Our model tends to stick and not, the counterweight doesn't bring it down to reset it to get the pieces out. And I've just been telling them, just go for it as if it was working. I did do like the rebuild on it, but it's still sticking. Is this a common issue that's going on?
So when you say you did the rebuild, did you change the piece for the update? Okay. So I'll tell you guys that, and I mean, Jeff was there as well. We saw quite a bit of that sticking at scrimmage the other day. And teams are going about it different ways. We kind of got an idea of what it looks like when it's sticking and kind of what it looks like when it should be working. So we kind of got a good idea of how it actuates. And so even for us doing it by hand, we were getting a significant percentage of sticking. So we're going to advise the referees to, definitely make sure the model's built correctly and according to the update, and what to look for that actuation.
I had one of the ones that I had worked with was sticking, and I found it was the dual lock underneath was sticking out a bit, and then it was sticking on that. So you can check that. So if the dual lock is sticking out at any part, then it might be that. I don't know.
Okay, so you had a physical, it was physically stopping the model from operating.
Yeah, so then what I did then is put a different piece of dual lock on, but put it further inside so it wasn't sticking out, because the sticky part was sticking out a little bit.
So when you put the dual lock on, was it still in the correct position of the model?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So what we saw, and we had a couple different coaches and a couple kids kind of show us what works better, right? So if we set it this way, we tend to not get it. It tends to not stick as much or something like that. And that's all good advice. So it's going to be very tough for us to get every table resetter to be consistent on setting something. So what we tend to do is set it up by the rule book, right? There's no way we're going to be able to tell every single table resetter that we want to set it in a specific orientation. So as long as it's set according by the rules, we consider that a properly set model. So at that point, we'll look for what we, like I said, we observed it quite a bit, and we all manually operated the model multiple times, different models. So we kind of know what it looks like when it should operate. You know, if it's not pushed in far enough, if it is pushed in far enough. So we're kind of trying to keep an eye out for what should operate. And if it's operated properly or what we think is proper, then the procedure then would be we will award the kids the mission model failure, right? If they plan on using those energy units for something else, like let's say they have a sled or a basket and they're placing it underneath where the energy units would come out, they still need to, like you said, kind of pretend like it dropped, and they still need to go through the steps of moving that to wherever they were going to put it. And they'll need to make sure we remember, hey, that was a mission model failure there. We should have 3 instead of 2. So we're looking out for that. We're going to try to stress to any of the resetters and, well, not the resetters, sorry, any of the table refs to be on the lookout for that. But I think we're going to have a significant amount of what we're going to deem mission model failure on that. It didn't seem to be affected by, I mean, we had some that were tighter, some that were looser, some that were, we looked through a couple of them, they were built properly. So I don't know.
Different model, but we were having our little toy dinosaur on the Toy Factory one. Like the stuff would go into the hopper and the piece would come up, but the little guy wouldn't slide. And we thought it wasn't coming up enough. But it turned out, I think when we were dual locking it, maybe we squeezed it a little too hard and it needed to be sort of squeezed outwardly from the inside out. And that solved the problem and it drops easily now.
It was flexing in and kind of binding it or something.
I think so, yeah.
If the kids come across, and this is good advice for any of the teams actually, if the kids come across something on their own table that they know is an issue, we certainly don't mind testing the mission model before, or at that point, hopefully we'll have run the tables multiple times because there's practices and stuff like that on the competition tables usually. So hopefully we won't have issues like that going into tournament times, but it'll happen.
Can I ask a follow-up question with regard to 2 questions that were posted in the Slack channel
Sure.
yesterday?
Sure.
Especially as helping to host one of the tournaments. The question had to do with the consent and release forms, and if there's any other paperwork that needs to be brought to the tournament, such as a printed roster. Can we go over what it is that tournament directors are supposed to be expecting coaches to bring, so coaches know what they should bring?
Yes. We can go over that. I don't know if it's a Debbie or a Brian thing.
Okay,
And as a tournament
Debbie.
director, I'm not entirely sure how to answer that question myself. so.
Okay. I mean, but yes, we can go over it. So if that helps your question, then yeah.
Thank you.
Maybe a
Um,
Debbie question.
I think it is a Debbie question, and I don't know if I know the answer to that, so I'll have to look it up and see. Jeff, do you have any idea?
That's something, if you haven't heard from First yet on that we should definitely follow up tomorrow with them on and see if we can get an answer.
Okay,
Jen, where was that? Sorry.
All team members, all mentors, all volunteers should be completing the first consent and release form through the first website. The feedback First had given us last year is that that consent and release form does not apply to their partner organizations like BadgerBots that host events for them, and that we needed our own consent and release form. But we should follow up with First and just confirm that that wasn't something specific to the previous 2 years with concerns about COVID liability, or if that was a more generic requirement that we should be doing that every year.
Tagged you. Thank you, Meg, for pointing out where it was. Debbie, I tagged you on that thread. So
Yeah.
Actually, the one above it as well. There's one from Sue and one from Peggy. So it's under general. So if anybody is watching this video that was still expecting to volunteer, expecting to be going to Riverside, not as a team, but volunteer at Riverside this week, the tournament was canceled, and they did try to log in to send notifications out to volunteers, but it had already been removed from the first portal. So if people are watching this and you're waiting for a response, or you think that you volunteer for Riverside, Riverside is canceled. They did try to send emails. It just wasn't available to send the global email because it was deleted from the portal. Did have an email that came in today with a couple questions. I just gotta look it up. You guys have to have questions for Brian. He's going to feel like he's not doing anything. Thank you very much, Brian, for the scrimmage on Saturday. It was great. I heard a lot of good feedback from teams. I heard a lot of good comments on the judging advice that they got. So we do appreciate it, and actually not only helps the teams, but it helps the referees. We got to see, some real teams running on real tables that some of us haven't seen yet this year. So thank you very much for that. It was.
Oh, it's our pleasure.
Yep.
Glad people enjoyed it, and thanks for your help.
Oh yeah, anytime.
I actually have a robot question.
Okay.
Saturday when we were practicing, we had some issue with our big blue wheels on the Spike Prime just sliding and the robot just basically getting stranded. Any suggestions on the wheels just spinning? It's like they're sliding.
The rubber wheels can get dirty and dusty. So I know there are some teams that will clean their wheels before they do a round, just to make sure that they haven't gotten dirty. You want to make sure that the wheels, you're not using any cleaners that are going to make the wheels sticky or gummy, and you want to make sure they're completely dry before you use them on your mat, because the ink can be impacted by liquids and especially cleaners. But you could try that. Maybe that's why your wheels were slipping.
Maybe your mat itself also, we wipe ours down with a just barely damp cloth pretty often because it just gets dust or cat hair or whatever. Cat hair might be, my house.
Yeah, we were trying to do that. It just kept sliding. So those are all great suggestions. Thanks.
I've also seen if robots are told to go at full speed suddenly, that can cause some slipping. Is it possible something was dragging underneath the robot that the team didn't see, that could have caused some friction?
Or your weight balance If you're using a ball bearing on the other end of it and you've got your weight balance so that there's too much weight over the ball bearing.
Yeah, we're using the generic robot in Spike Prime since it's all of them their first year. So we went with the generic one, so they didn't have to worry about the weighting and all of that.
Can you try just running it on a clean countertop and just see if it drags on something that's not your mat?
Yeah, I could probably do that. That might show me a problem that I didn't see. Yeah.
Okay, I'll go over a couple things that we did see from scrimmage that we want to point out to you guys. So we want to make it clear to you guys, if you have, let's just say you have technicians working on the red side and they launch a robot. The robot is out in the middle of the field and they want to interrupt the robot. So either team can interrupt that robot, and as long as it's completely out of the home/launch area, completely out, so it's on the field, any technician can pick that up and take it over to either of the areas. So the technicians can only operate from their area. But let's say you have a red technician gets a stranded robot. He is allowed to pick that up and then move it over to the blue side. But then the red technician must come back. So some of the kids didn't understand that they're not allowed to. I'm sorry. Some of the kids did not understand that they are allowed to take the robot over to the other side during an interruption.
And just to be clear, that's an interruption outside of,
Right.
completely outside of home. That's allowed.
Right.
If
Completely is the key. Completely and outside are the keywords.
Yeah, I was gonna ask that, because if there's like half on the home area from one side, so you can return to that side if it's stranded, or can you still pick up and take to the other side?
if the robot is partly in a home area when it gets interrupted, it has to return to the home area it's partly in.
So I'll go over Dan's questions real quick because he's not able to make it tonight, but he says he does listen to the calls. So he's got a couple questions here. Mission 1, innovation project model. If the model is at least partly in the hydrogen plant target area, does it score even if it's touching the robot, correct? He says, I do not see anything that says it can't be touching equipment like other missions say. Dan, you are correct on that. There's nothing that says it can't be touching anything. Sorry, there's nothing that limits what it can be touching. Okay. He has a couple questions here. So also, I believe you clarify this already, but is the innovative project model equipment or a field element? The innovation project model is equipment. You bring it to the table with you. And he says, I don't see a rule. Quote, you can see in the rules there's a 12-inch ceiling for inspection, but is there a 12-inch ceiling on the launch area for launch? I don't see where it clearly says either way. You are correct. It does not clearly say either way. So because it does not say that there is a height limit on launch, there is not a height limit on 12-inch. Height limit is on inspection only. So guys, especially rookie teams, just be really careful about putting extra restrictions on yourself. If it doesn't say it, just be familiar with the rules, and if it doesn't say something in the rule, don't restrict yourself by, assuming that something should be there if it's not. Do a search on the rule book and do some keyword searches on there or something, and get the answers. Don't put extra rules on yourself.
Are there any other questions?
I think that's kind of a follow-up question from before. I think I missed part of the answer. So besides the consent and release forms, is there anything else we need to print out and take to competition?
Do you mean something like maybe team information sheets or anything like that? Or are you talking specifically registration information of some sort?
Right, like for the when you get there for the check-in. So besides consent release, is there anything else we need?
I think we left that as Debbie's looking into that, and you're
Yep.
you're on the Slack channel, right?
Right. Yes.
So on the general question board there or post board, there's a couple questions there. One's by Peggy. I tagged her in that, so if we just reply on that, you just check into that, and you should get your answer.
Sounds good.
What team were you guys with, Shara? I don't remember seeing you on Saturday. Were you at Lakeshore or were you at Waukesha?
We didn't go.
Oh.
My kids decided they didn't want to, actually. We're at Milwaukee Math and Science Academy.
Oh, okay, I see.
This is the first team I've had in a couple years. So whole new group of kids. My old team all graduated last year from 8th grade. So
Gotcha.
a whole new set of kiddos.
Yeah, I thought I heard you say scrimmage, so that's why I was asking.
We were at practice on Saturday. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. And Jennifer, you guys had a scrimmage, it looks like. Everything went well for you guys. It was a blast, huh?
We did. We had a good time. It was nice to see big groups of kids again, and yeah, the excitement level was there. So it was exciting. Yeah, just a lot of mentors' faces going, oh, we're not ready.
We heard that from nearly every single team. We're not ready, or we don't have this ready. We had teams not wanting to get onto the competition tables. They just wanted to be on the practice tables because they didn't feel confident. So we
got
them over to some of the competition tables and let them work with the referees a little bit and get some time runs in and see where they really need to look at. So,
right. Well, and just to have a referee to talk to is helpful, just to make sure. I mean, like all those questions that you're saying, like earlier, was saying, don't limit yourself. Well, if you have a referee saying, yeah, you can do that, just that gives you some freedom to try some things that you maybe are hesitant to try. I know we had a lot of people that are struggling still with the project itself and like what really they should be looking at and what constitutes meeting the requirements of the question. So it'll be interesting. We only have 2 weeks left because we're second week. So I don't know. We'll see. It'll be interesting.
It was kind of interesting. We heard almost to the team, everybody was saying that they feel like they're 2 or 3 weeks behind. So if you feel like you're 2 or 3 weeks behind, you're right where you should be because everybody's feeling that way. I heard that said over and over and over. We feel like we're 2 or 3 weeks behind. So,
well, I appreciate hearing that because I will pass that on to some of my teams because they did. Like I had a couple say maybe we won't even go next, and I'm like, no, just come because it's just fun no matter where you are. Come.
It's not about winning. It's about
right.
learning.
That's right. That's what I said
Yep.
in each one of the introduction because we did the pod model because we had some feedback from coaches that they would like to not be in the whole day for the scrimmages. And so we said, if you had fun, you have won. And that's everything else is bonus.
yeah, it's a blast. So for rookie teams, if anybody's registered and they're thinking about maybe not showing up or you're not ready, the whole experience of the day is just incredible for the kids. So even if you don't think you're going to be competitive or go out there and do the best that you can and get the experience and just the day of being there and walking around the pit area is just phenomenal. And some of the kids getting a chance to watch the other robot teams. Some of these kids have never seen other teams run at all. They're going on YouTube and they're watching teams that are picking and choosing, cherry picking runs and scoring 350 points, but that's not a normal thing. Like every team out there is not going to score 350, 400 points. Okay, so definitely come and enjoy the day. The pit area is great. Watching how some of the attachments work, watching some of the line followers, I get that a lot. How are they getting that to work, or the gyros, and talk to the kids, talk to these guys in the pit areas. They like sharing.
Yeah.
I think, Jay, one of the things that surprised me when we went to Detroit a couple years ago was the extremes on the robot game scores at Worlds. There were teams that had 60 points and teams that had 300 points.
Right.
They got to Worlds with a 60-point robot. It's not all about the robot. Yes, that's awesome and it's fun, but it isn't all about the robot.
Yep.
Yep.
And sometimes the more complex the robot is, I mean, they need that perfect storm to actually complete their big runs. If they have all these attachments and all these sensors and, they're getting 300 points, if one thing fails, they don't
Right.
get that. It's a bust. So it happens a lot. I've
Yeah.
also seen teams get to tournament and have to program everything. They lost all their coding, didn't bring coding with them, didn't have backups, and be competitive the day of tournament. So, not impossible. But yeah, just come. I mean, you guys it's going to be a good time. So we really enjoyed seeing all the kids again, all the coaches, and watching the kids grow up throughout the years. We see some of the kids that we remember when they first started, and now they're, getting ready to graduate out of the program. So just watching them through the years is really cool.
Our head ref for the Lakeshore tournament was one of our first FLL teams at Lakeshore First. So yeah, it's really neat to see that growth. Awesome.
All right. Nobody has any other questions. Guess we will still ask for volunteering if you guys have time. And again, I wish some of the other coaches that were here that did volunteer for the scrimmage, because I got some feedback on that they really enjoyed volunteering for scrimmages, and they always enjoy volunteering for tournaments because you learn so much about what goes on the other side, like what the coaches are taught, or what the judges are really looking for, what they're asking for, or how they're judging, stuff like that. So if you're available on one of the weekends that your team is not competing or have some time, please volunteer. We can use all the help we can get usually. So I think just about everybody here is on the Slack channel. If you guys need to get a hold of us, I think we actually had a couple this week. We had a couple emails, so you can just reply back to the newsletter that you're getting, and Debbie or whoever's taking
Yep.
care of that will distribute them to the referees or to the judges, or she'll take care of whatever needs to happen there. So,
Mhm.
and if you guys, so I guess if you guys have something that you're a question that you've asked and it's still hanging out there, or you're not seeing an answer to, please ask us again. So just jump onto the Slack channel or something and ask us again, because we're not trying to ignore any of your questions. Sometimes they slip through the cracks. Sometimes we're researching it and trying to get answers for you, but it's been more than a couple days or a week. Just get a hold of us. And if you're going to tournament pretty quick, definitely get a hold of us. So.
Meg, I'm going to give you a call after we're done with this meeting and see if we can figure out what's going on with your team. Okay?
Okay, thanks.
You're always welcome to come referee with me, Meg.
I have to figure out when we're competing
No, I
before I
know.
can figure out that.
I was teasing you. You refereed with us during COVID, right?
I did.
Yep. Okay. If there are no more questions,
Okay, well, thank you, everyone.
go enjoy the trick-or-treating.
Thank you all.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
See ya.
Good night.